sales is the most lucrative skill in the world, period. The problem is most sales advice out there today is outdated, cheesy, and can even keep you from getting the deals that can make all the difference in your career. This is the No BS Sales School, a podcast for entrepreneurs and salespeople who want to master the skill of selling without all the BS.
Welcome to the No BS Sales School podcast. I'm your host, Walker McKay. So glad you're here. I hope that your year is starting off well. If you ignored National Screw Off Month, which remember began the week before Thanksgiving and ended about the first week in January, where everybody just says, hey, nobody's doing business anymore and during this time, so we just don't call on people. If you ignored that, if you went ahead and worked anyway, you probably found that you had a decent fourth quarter and your pipeline's pretty good for January. So good for you that did that. Everybody else, no matter what you did, New Year starts over, time to get on it, right? Time to get your behavior up, the things that matter to you. So here's what I want to talk to you about today. Turn off the news. Turn off the news. Everything around us now is negative. Coronavirus, for God's sake, it's still here. They're going to beat you to death with that stuff, with the news of that stuff. War, oh my God, it's here, right? It's almost here. Then economy, stock market, cryptocurrencies, everything. Terrible news. Tell me which part of those you control. That would be zero. And if you are listening and you can control it, please fix that shit right away because you're ruining people's lives. But for the rest of us, turn that off. Don't listen to it. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but you can't change it and it's not helping you. And chances are it is hurting you. The more we take in negative information, whether we buy into it or not, subconsciously, you begin to tell yourself everything's going to hell. Why does it matter anyway? Right? And it's a little bit like, I hope you've never have, or maybe you've seen a car wreck before. You've been standing off the side, you watch two cars crash or three or whatever, and you watch it and you see it get ready to happen and you hear the crash. And next thing you know, you probably don't notice this, but you will follow that and you won't see anything else other than that car crash, right? And that's all you'll see. And oh my God, how terrible and whatever else. And you don't think about anything else. And while you're watching it happen, you don't even move except for turn your head. So why am I telling you about a car crash? Because watching the news is like watching a car crash. Not helpful for you. Nothing good comes out of it. A lot of bad can come out of it. You'll waste a lot of time talking to people about the shitty news, reading about the shitty news, going down all the different rabbit holes of those companies that get paid. The more you spend on their channels, the more that you spend, the more time that you spend on the links that they put out there, that's how they get paid. This is called doom scrolling, right? So turn off the news. It is not helping you. And what I'll tell you is usually the press, and this is going to sound really bad. I don't know, unless I'm bringing the class. What we all believe is we start reading about a recession, right? And a recession is an emotional thing. They like to talk about it like it's some financial thing. It's an emotional thing, right? So people, and there are some financial impacts, of course, that lead to, oh my God, somebody's scared because what if this happens? We better hold on to our money. And then they talk to other people, and then people downstream from them say, oh my God, look at all this happening. We better hold on to our money. And sure enough, as the stones fall, we create a recession for ourselves. Now, does it happen? Natural business cycle, normal human behavior? Yes, but you don't have to participate. Your job, so let's think about this, just because, let's pretend the stock market drops, however much it drops, just because whatever happens, supply chain crap, which is another thing we read about all the time, has your why changed? Does it matter if the stock market drops however much or the supply chain thing drags on forever? Has the reason that you're working hard changed? For most of us, hell no. We've got goals that we need to accomplish no matter what the hell's happening out in the world. We got to make it happen anyway. That's our job. That's what winners do, is figure shit out. But if you spend all your time soaking up information that is negative, telling us how the world sucks and is never going to be good again, we're all going to die miserable deaths and starve to death, and the economy, we're going to have the worst recession of our entire beings as human beings. And by the way, Russia's going to blow us all up, and then China too, and then it's going to be absolute hell. Please. That is just, honestly, it's news porn. You can't take your eyes off of it. And we reckon it's like eating junk food, right? We feel if we can stay up on these things, they would be able to talk the current thing. It's like eating junk foods, potato chips. It is no good for you. Might feel good in the moment, but it sucks for you. So here's what I will tell you to do instead. Turn off that shit. Spend your time, instead of reading the news, doom scrolling, get a book. When's the last time you read a book, that you bought a physical book and read it? My guess is for many of you, maybe never, or not since college or high school. So I've been an Audible guy for the past 5 or 6 years. I bet I've listened to, 100 and something books on Audible, and I love that, and it's good, and I recommend it. For people like me that don't have a lot of sit-down time, the Audible books are awesome, and I've gotten a lot of good material from that. However, recently I have made a goal to read at least one hardbound or soft copy real book a month. And so, tell you, it is a huge deal. It gives me, instead of doom scrolling on my phone or on my computer, I put that shit down and I pick up a book. It's funny, I'm reading a book right now that I highly recommend. It's a book called Will, which is the biography of Will Smith, which, you know what, I probably wouldn't have read it unless my friend Chris, who's my podcast editor, he said he just finished this great book and he thought I might like it. And he sent me a copy, and I'm just 3 or 4 chapters in, and it's freaking awesome. And what it does is it takes me into somebody else's mind, right, who has been successful and how they think and what they've been through, and helps me see things a different way. I highly recommend that book. I will also, I've listened to a bunch of books lately. But anyway, another one I would recommend is run by my buddy Rob Napoli, The Social Soul. You can get that on Amazon as well, The Social Soul by Rob Napoli. Great book about how to build your brand on social media in today's time without being a pain in the butt. So instead of spending time on the news, read books. I don't care if they're business books. I don't care if they're history books. I don't care if they're personal. I don't care if they're fiction. But feed your mind with something besides the frickin' doom news, which is always negative. Here's another thing. Listen to podcasts. Clearly, you're already podcast type people because you're listening to this. I listen to a whole host of them. I listen to probably 6 sales podcasts. I listen to Joe Rogan, whom I find fascinating. I listen to random podcasts about random things just to get my brain thinking about other things, right? Just to get outside of my normal little world. And it gives me something so that I'm not focused on what's happening today. Right? Because what's happening today is noise. When we write about it 10 years from now, it will be history, which is written through a certain lens. But today, all we can control is us and what we do and how we approach things and what happens when you get punched in the face. What happens when shit doesn't go your way? What do you do next? I go back to my friend Steve Sims, who wrote this great book called Blue Fishing, which I also highly recommend. Blue Fishing, not blue fish, Blue Fishing. He has this great quote in there. It says, nobody dies from falling in the water. You only die from failing to get out. So if you've been caught up in the doom loop, reading the newspapers, and it is addictive, they make it that way, like so many things. If you're caught up, you can stop. Grab a book instead. Grab a podcast. Listen to stuff on Audible. Go to the library and get books. Even the library has a downloadable thing. It can be business. It can be not business. Just fill your mind with other stuff. Keep away from all this other shit. And if you're around people and all they're focused on is how bad things are and how awful things are and how business is going to suck or it does suck, stay away from those people. And my vivid example of this is in the early 90s. I was in the commercial real estate business. And I was hung around with 7 or 8 guys. And we were in a recession, a very strong recession. And it was terrible. And we didn't make much money. And it's interesting, though, because we said, the economy's terrible and nobody's buying. The banks are screwing us and lawyers are terrible and blah, 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 and the government and blah, blah, blah. And so we didn't make any money that year. But there were 4 guys in my office. And they came in every day and they closed their door and they got on the phone and they went to work. And it's amazing. Those 4 folks had their best year at the time they'd ever had. All separately, because they came in and just worked. And they sold shit, and they didn't give up, and they found new clients, and they found ways to make it work. The rest of us were reading the Wall Street Journal. If there's ever an example of something you're doing that's wasting your time, unless you're a stockbroker, and even then there's probably a better way to do this, reading the freaking Wall Street Journal, or the New York Times, or the freaking state newspaper, whatever the hell it is, put that shit aside. If you want to read it on the weekend, but just know there is no good news in there. Very little. Podcasts, books, spend time with people who are positive, who are and I don't mean freaking happy, joy, bullshit stuff, but I mean people that are going and their approach to the world is, I know there's a lot of shit going on, but I got to get my stuff done. I've got to grow my business. I have to figure this out. That's what I wish I could teach my children. And I wish I could instill it, and they've got a little bit of it, but maybe just grow it with time, is how do you figure out what to do when the shit goes down? When nothing goes the way you want it to, what do you do next? That's what we need to focus on. What do you do next when shit goes wrong? When a meeting doesn't happen, or a deal falls through, or a client fires you, or something bad happens? What do you do now? Have a coach, have a mentor, have somebody, have a strong backbone, whatever the hell it takes, so that when something happens, you can say, okay, that sucked. What do we do now? Reach out for help. All right, I'm going to end my sermon there. No BS Sales Team, I have a free mini course for you if you'd like a copy of it. It is called 7 Sales Mistakes and What You Can Do About It. If you go to it's in the show notes too, but if you go to the website, www.7salesmistakes.com, www.7salesmistakes.com, you'll find a quick 8 video mini course about what are those mistakes that you may be making and how much money they're costing you and what you can do about it. Go there, check it out. Free information from me. If you want to talk to somebody, if you want to see if you could be better at the business, at the career that's feeding your family, and you're ready to talk to somebody, give me a shout. Walker at walkermckay.com, 803-917-2817. Thank you, No BS Sales Team. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening to No BS Sales School podcast. If you haven't already, please take 1 minute to write a quick review for the show. It really does make a huge difference. Also, subscribe to the show and please forward this episode to somebody else who needs to hear it. As a bonus for listening, I'm going to give you access to a free mini course, 7 expensive sales mistakes you're making and what you can do about it. Go to www.7salesmistakes.com and get access to the free mini course. That's the number 7salesmistakes.com. Thanks again for listening to the No BS Sales School podcast.